The Red Mountain AVA is the smallest viticultural area in Washington state. Originally planted in 1975, there are now over 50 vineyards growing on the gentle southwestern-facing slope of Red Mountain. And due to its unique climate and geography, they are now producing some of the most coveted wines in the state and beyond.
We choose Red Mountain because we definitely feel like it's the best place to grow Cabernet in Washington state. For us, it's really about flavors and flavor development. And here on Red Mountain, we get long, hot growing season that really help develop flavors and tannins for us.
I've been making wine now for 20 years in the state, and the very first vineyard I ever picked out of was Clipson Vineyard up on Red Mountain. So I've watched the evolution of this whole industry up on Red Mountain, and I got to say, it is incredible. The soils are amazing. The microclimate itself with the Yakima River running right by it gives you incredible acidity while you still get super ripe fruit. And every year my top wines rated and priced are always off of Red Mountain.
I think every winemaker has their favorite area for fruit, and myself and the rest of the team, we love Red Mountain. We see a lot of intensity in the wines, finesse, power. It just allows us to make the wines that we want to drink.
We seem to get really concentrated flavors in the berries. The berries stay small, and particularly for red wine making purposes, that's really fundamental because we extract the skins to get the color and the flavor.
I think what makes it unique that a lot of people don't talk about, it's actually the people here. It's the people that, Red Mountain is really just focused on high quality fruit, high quality grapes, high quality wines. And so the growers even on Red Mountain, that's what they focus on. We work with the best winemakers in the state. The best winemakers in our state want to be on Red Mountain.
Canvasback Wines is a relative newcomer to Red Mountain. They planted their first vines here in 2014 and harvested their first grapes in 2016.
We are talking to Brian from Canvasback, and I want to talk to you a little bit more about Canvasback and how they ended up here on Red Mountain.
So Canvasback is the newest winery that belongs to the Duckhorn Wine Company, who got their start in Napa Valley in 1978. I think what's happening up on here on Red Mountain that's so exciting is that the world has really started to take notice. And I think that one of the preeminent wineries in Napa has heard about the wines, excited by the styles, the range of possibilities that we can do texturally and with flavors up here. We're immediately drawn to it. And after about a year of research around Washington State, realized that Red Mountain in particular had something special going for it.
And how did you end up here at Canvasback?
So I was working for another winery at the time based out of Walla Walla, and at that winery I was fortunate enough to work with Cabernets from several different AVAs. I worked with Walla Walla Cab, I worked with Horse Heaven Hills Fruit, Yakima Valley Fruit, and I was lucky enough to work with Red Mountain. And year after year we would notice whether it was a cool year or whether it was a hot year or whether it was a difficult year or whether it was a kind year, the Red Mountain Cabernets, those barrels, always seemed to have something special to them, and it was power, intensity, and grace. And when the opportunity to come work with Duckhorn, with Canvasback, with just Red Mountain Cabernet Sauvignon, I couldn't resist.
How does the rest of the world right now see Red Mountain?
So one thing that we're so lucky for in the Pacific Northwest is here at home, people know the name Red Mountain, and these wines and wines from this region are so prized and so cherished. But because the AVA is so small and there's only 1,800 acres currently under vine, there isn't a whole lot of reach nationally. So if you are a sommelier or a wine lover in New York City or Miami or Denver or San Diego, you may have read about Red Mountain and you may have heard about it, or you may know that there's a buzz on the word Red Mountain, but there's a good chance you haven't even been able to try a wine from there yet. And I think for me, one of the great joys in getting to work with Duckhorn Wine Company, with Canvasback, is we've been making wine out of Napa for 40 years, and we have a great network, sales network across the U.S. And so it gives me the opportunity to take this local produce from this area and take it to the great wine markets of the U.S. And a lot of times when I show up in these restaurants and wine stores across the U.S., it's the first time someone gets to taste a Red Mountain wine, and it makes me so excited that we get to present something and open the door for all the other great wineries that are out here making wine, and hopefully get to spread exposure on this area.
And I'm assuming everyone's reaction is very positive.
People love it. I think they get really excited about the idea that you can have some of the highest quality Cabernet that can be made in the United States, but for the price we can do it here on Red Mountain compared to what it costs us to do in California, it's a tremendous value.
We like to think we make the best Merlot in the world in Washington, but we got to concede a little bit to
Canvasback recruited Dick Boucher to help select this site near the top of Red Mountain and manage the vineyard. We spoke to him about the effects of an unusually harsh winter on the vines and what he sees for the future of Red Mountain and the Washington wine industry.
We're anxiously awaiting bud break. This winter obviously hasn't been very favorable for the grapes. This is Dick Boucher. He's the vineyard manager at Canvasback. Last year, you guys had bud break just a little bit earlier. Is that correct?
Yeah, we were out and growing. It was probably this 4 to 6 inches of growth by now at this same time.
And this year, now this is the first week of April, and you really haven't seen any yet. We were just checking the Merlot grapes or the vines, and they're starting to show some signs.
Merlot's starting to swell. The buds are just ready to pop. If we'd ever get a couple of warm days in a row, life would be good.
Yeah.
But it's a little frustrating, but the wood's in good shape after the cold winter, and they're ready to go. We're just waiting for some warm days. But in reality, this is probably more a 20 to 30 year average bud break. We've just had a string of really warm years that pushed the bud break and bloom out earlier than ever before. Last year was the earliest bud break and the earliest bloom ever on record.
You've seen the state of Washington grow. Just how has that been for you?
Oh gosh, kind of amazing. And I've always underestimated the growth. I thought, well, when I started, there were 9 wineries and we'd planted these grapes, and I thought, well, we planted too much. We've peaked out. That was back in the 80s, early 80s. I would have never imagined we'd be where we are now with 900 wineries, and I think there's 56,000 acres planted, and it's just beginning to grow. There's a real unity in this business. Everybody shares everything because we're all trying to figure out the best way to grow grapes here. It's been more the industry itself working together collaboratively, not just in the vineyard, but in the winery. It's like we're competing with the world, but not with each other. The other thing that's happening, you probably don't see it here, but we're still experimenting. I'm working with probably 6 different training systems up here. It's kind of one big experiment that's happening slowly in front of us. In the meantime, I think we're doing a good job with what we're doing, but there's a whole new generation coming too, which is exciting. It's kind of funny, these younger people, they have more basic knowledge about what they're doing than I ever had. But that's exciting because that bodes well for us, that we're only going to get better. To me, this whole top ridge up here is, it's the most, it's going to be the new discovery for Red Mountain. And I love elevation. And I can't say that down below, the reputation was made by the vineyards that were planted on the down below here, and they're older vines and they have a lot of complexity, but the new sort of discovery is this top shelf that's been planted in the last, 5 to 10 years. And that's one of the reasons I'm here, because it's exciting to be on a piece of ground like this. I think Brian, the winemaker, conveyed that notion, but for me as a grower, I'm getting paid to be here, but it's also exciting to be growing.
See what exactly happens.
I planted it. I probably won't be around when the best wines will be made off this. I mean, I'll be around, but I probably won't be farming this. But hopefully we planted the right varieties and the right soil type, and we're going to manage it properly. And I know they're making good wine out of it already.
In the early 1990s, the reputation of Red Mountain attracted the interest of the Antinori family of Tuscany, Italy, who have been in the wine business since 1385. They partnered with Chateau Saint Michel and created Col Solare. I'm joined by the winemaker here, Daryl. I love your last name, Allwine.
Correct, yes.
Now, we'll start off by talking about that. How did you become interested in wine, and is there, I guess, a correlation?
No, there's actually no correlation with the actual name, but as far as how I got started in the wine industry, I was in the U.S. Air Force. I retired in 1995, and then there was an ad in the local newspaper for a cellar worker down at Columbia Crest Winery. I said, well, I thought to myself, this would be fun, and I sent them a resume and got hired after 5 interviews, and from that point on, I never looked back. I fell in love with wine, winemaking, everything that goes into a bottle of wine, all the way from vineyards through fermentation and barrel aging. It just fascinated me.
Explain to me about the collaboration and what had to come together for Col Solare to come to Red Mountain.
Yeah, so that all started in early 90s when consultant for Saint Michel, Andrei Tilichev, was good friends with Pierre Antinori while Piero was looking for a property there in Napa Valley, and Andre convinced Piero to come to Washington to taste the wines and see how the grapes are grown. Pierre Antinori is a true visionary in looking at different regions throughout the world to see how the grapes are grown and wines made there. Mm-hmm. And he really fell in love with Washington. Legacy as far as the family company, and they've been making wine for 26 generations. As far as vineyard sourcing and how we planted our estate vineyard, we turned to the Antinoris and what they've done in Tuscany, as far as long-term viticultural studies to really get the best quality fruit. And they determined that high-density planting, a little over 2,000 plants per acre, compared to a normal Washington vineyards anywhere from 900 to 1,000. And with that, you have less fruit per root structure, so the fruit is more concentrated. So we actually planted our estate vineyard, high density, and those vineyards have really performed phenomenal for us here on Red Mountain, mm-hmm. and they're a core of our blend of Col Solare.
I want to talk briefly too about, do you mind if I pick one of these up?
Yeah, no, it's fine.
Grappa, and what exactly this is.
So, part of the Antinori properties in Tuscany, they do make a grappa from some of their estates, and the thing with Italy, they cannot produce that grappa on their wine premises, so they have to send it off to a local distillery to do that. And when Pierre was visiting in 2009, he thought it'd be kind of neat for us to really maybe try that project with us, with Col Solare. So in 2010, we actually worked with a local distiller at Prosser and sent them our pumice, which is the leftover grape skins and seeds after you press it, to distill the remaining alcohol that's trapped in the skins. And then in 2011, we actually purchased a 300-liter alembic pot still. So from 11 through current, we are producing the grappa at the winery here. And basically, we bring it out during harvest, and we bring the fruit in from the estate after we press off the Cabernet. Mm-hmm. We'll put it in the still and run the still for about 10 hours for one batch. And on one batch, you get about a gallon of high-proof alcohol. And then we bottle about 40 cases of it a year, and that's only sold here at the winery.
Okay. For someone who doesn't know what it tastes like, what should someone expect?
Grappa is a distilled spirit, so, but you do get some of those nuances from the grape, and the aromatics really kind of pop in that essence, but, the idea is having a smooth drink. So grappa typically is drank after you finish your meal, mm-hmm. and and it's a small amount, and as long as it's smooth and elegant, then it's really good.
Are you happy for this as a retirement project?
I'm very happy. After 20 years in the military and then retiring and coming here, I've been with Saint Michel now for 21 years, and looking forward to the next what holds next for the next 4 or 5 years.
Another Red Mountain pioneer of sorts is Charlie Hoppus, the owner and winemaker at Fidelitas. He has been working with Red Mountain wine since 2000 and is now experimenting with different varieties of grapes to further expand the local landscape.
If you want to make a big, very concentrated, somewhat tannic red wine, you come to Red Mountain. So they're very distinctive wines that when I taste one, I can tell right away that it's Red Mountain.
You're experimenting with different cabs, different clones to kind of bring out different flavors. Is that correct?
Right. Washington's always been known for growing great cab, but specifically what I call almost the Washington clonate of Cabernet. And that's been great. It's served us well, but I think that there's another dimension that these new cab clones can bring. And so with a lot of the new plantings that are going on, that clonate is still part of the planting program, but there's a lot of new clones that are used in other areas, not just in the United States, but throughout the world that we're trying to bring in and use. So I think what it can do for the wines is bring, it's all Cabernet Sauvignon, but it brings in different layers and different dimensions to the wine. So what we hope to do is, it's sort of like a cook with different spices. I look at it like that. So, that's part of the signature that a winemaker comes up with. I mean, we're not artists, but we try to, the wine definitely has a winemaker's signature on it.
You started in the early 1980s, and this is when wine in the state of Washington was in its infant stages. How did you get into the wine making industry?
Well, I was interested growing up in the Yakima Valley and did a trip to California in the early 80s. Got some encouragement from people in the industry, all 35 wineries that existed then. Kind of had it in the back of my mind that, boy, it'd be great to be on Red Mountain someday. And, that was, actually, I remember coming up here in the late 80s, finally got back up here in 2007, able to buy land and get things started.
What's the meaning behind Fidelitas?
Fidelitas is actually, we started with Fidelis, which is a name on my wife's side of the family, which means fidelity in Latin. So we use the little term faithful, loyal, true, and our symbol is the symbol of fidelity.
You have somewhere folks can have dinner out in the vineyard.
We do. We have a pad that we developed. We built a circle with the logo built into the concrete in the middle of the vineyard. We have traditionally had a harvest dinner out there in September every year. It's a little challenging. There's no power. There's no water or bathrooms there, but we have golf carts. We run back and forth. But it's beautiful. People like to get out. It's a different setting than just in a regular room. So people really like that kind of thing. We hope to use it more and more.
This week on 100% Chance of Wine, we made our way out to Cooper on Red Mountain. We have Neil and joined by Jade this week.
Thanks for having me out here with you guys.
One thing that's special about your winery, this is the very first winery that I think I've stepped foot in, and this is because of you, and you have this special relationship with Neil. This is one of your favorite places to come out.
It absolutely is.
Why would you say that?
Well, he's Uncle Neil. That's why I'd say it. My family has just formed a close friendship with Neil, and he's opened his winery up to us so many times. And you just feel like you're a part of the family when you come out here.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's something that's really special and really unique for the type of winery that he has.
Mm-hmm.
The doors are always open, the wine is always pouring, and you come out with your friends and your family and your kids, and you just have a good time.
When you have these guests come in, tell me some of the stories that these folks have that you remember and that just make it extra special for your winery.
Really, from the get-go was, how are we going to build a marketing plan that is going to attract the right consumer for a lifetime? Our attrition on our wine club is one of the smallest. I'm very proud of that. We have great rapport, connection, conversations with our wine club, not only when they're here, but through email and phone calls. We make a lot of phone calls, making sure that we're on the top end of their list.
Mm-hmm. And someone that really makes your business what it is today is this little guy down here. Really wouldn't call him little guy.
Old brown dog.
Yeah.
So Bud has been he's been a player from day one. He was 8 months old when we when we took the location on. He was about 18 months old when we opened the doors. And I have had wine club members, we call Coop Club, leave after realizing that Bud had already left on a Friday afternoon because they couldn't see him, to come back Saturday to pick up their wine shipments because Bud would be here. So he's got himself into a really kind of a fun niche. He greets. He's known as the greeter. He's also known as the gatekeeper of Red Mountain, being here on the corner of Sunset and 224.
Which you have a wine named after that.
We have a brown label. It's a very non-traditional wine that we named after him a couple years ago. He's a pretty special dude.
And the pictures that you have inside the winery, and you see this on Instagram too, that you post from either Coop Club members that take your wine all across the world.
Yeah.
Tell me more about those.
Yeah, we don't do a very good job of really explaining the magnitude of that. It started actually with a great club member in Seattle. He sent me a picture of a Chardonnay bottle from Santorini, Greece, and I posted it on social media without thinking a lot about it, and it just took off. We have over 600 pictures now from around the world. 600.
Wow. Oh my God.
Yeah, no, it's silly. We have about 40 of them on display. I probably have 8 pictures from the Eiffel Tower.
Oh my gosh.
And they mostly get better, sometimes not.
Jade, you come here a lot with your family. What's one of your favorite memories from coming here?
One favorite is when I came right after Jackson was born. The memories just continue as, John and I come out for events, and we come out with my folks, and we bring the kids out, and they run around the yard with Bud, and they play, and we're doing lawn games, and we're sipping good wine and just enjoying each other's company. I think those memories are what's the best.
I think for me Washington wine is already quite approachable. There's no reason for snobby. There's no reason for anything that we've seen in other regions, and Washington does a good job of it. I like to take it to the next level and pour really great estate wines and to tell the story about them in an environment that's really welcoming. And I think that's what I think we're good about that on Red Mountain.
I know we talk about this a lot, but for you, why Red Mountain?
Well, we do talk about it a lot. Not only did I want to be on Red Mountain, but I wanted to be on the corner of Sunset and 224. So to me, it's a spectacular location, not only on Red Mountain, but we're the first one. I wanted to be a part of this incredible culture. Not only the family operations of Red Mountain, but the quality of fruit. When you talk about 4,040 acres, you talk about densely planted vineyards, there'll be less homes than more right here, and there's very few places in the world that you can say that. We will take homes off and plant vineyards on Red Mountain, and that doesn't happen. And to me, that says a lot about the quality, the location, the proximity to the Tri-Cities. Everything, all indicators are just really strong to be a part of something that's not going to go away. Our intent is really to show people what vineyard is. Agritourism is so important. People want to know where their food comes from. People want to know how it's grown, why we do what we do, what style of trellising. The questions and conversations are really great today. One of my favorite views that is so interesting that nobody ever really thinks about is right here. It's a new world.
See everything.
It's a whole new world. This is Bud's perspective.
Right?
But it really is. I mean, it's just so interesting that we get so fixated on the green canopy of a vineyard and everything up here that we never think about this. And I just think it's really, really cool.
Got it. Okay. Good.
It's chilly. Okay. That work?
Okay.
So I was like, no, we're in the
That's how we get wine club members right there.
Nice pour.
We didn't,
I feel like it was great.
yeah, we didn't talk much about the wines. I don't think we need to. I mean, I think that's fine. I think that's fine.